Hey guys, Bo here with Live Urban Fort Worth, and I wanted to reach out to everybody today on behalf of my brokerage. I know a lot of you guys know that I got my broker's license a while back, and as I'm growing and watching what's going on in the economy and with the housing market, I feel like kind of just about everywhere I go right now, people ask me like, "Hey, what's going on with the market? What's going on in housing right now in Fort Worth?" We obviously live in a city that's dynamically changing very rapidly, which is very cool in very many ways. But I totally understand the question. For one, we are in an economy right now that is interesting to say the least. It's kind of hard to tell. It's volatile. It's hard to tell where things are really going. And in a lot of ways, we're not getting a lot of information. So it's important when you're working with a real estate professional that they're paying close attention to the economy, what's going on in politics, because that shapes the economy, what forecasters are saying, and really following the economics behind the way money is moving in our country. And on that note, it's kind of interesting because around 90% of the world's wealth comes from real estate. For example, McDonald's is the second biggest landowner on planet Earth. They're a real estate company that sells hamburgers, So real estate is bigger than the stock market. So if you think about that, it's really crazy. And the nice thing is, for us around this area, if you invest wisely in real estate, your equity can grow very fast. So if your back's against the wall, if you have a life change, you can sell your home and often walk away with, sometimes a small fortune, which is really cool. So I actually have some notes here, so I hope you don't bother, or that doesn't bother you. I need to stay on track. But so I wanted to give a quick little snapshot about what's going on in the housing market. All right, so right now in the DFW area, when interest rates spiked, it created a little bit of a buyer's market because everything just kind of slowed down, as we obviously saw, and across all industries things have slowed. It's easy to see. And so people were coming in, houses were sitting on the market for longer because buyers pulled back. So the people that were buying were able to kind of chip away at a better price on whatever the asking price on the home that they were interested in. We're seeing that go away because of a couple of factors. One is builders are building less homes. So that's kind of slowed down for a lot of reasons. Supply chain was an issue for a while. That's kind of rebounding a little bit, but obviously the inflation on products of wood. I mean, somebody told me, this was probably 8 or 9 months ago, that like even hinges were up 300%. So, I mean, while hinges may seem little, they add up when you're putting them on an entire house. So also with that, with the leveling market, is you've got all these people that locked in on their interest rates, years ago at like 3%, or they refinanced at 3% or whatever. So those people are hanging on to their homes right now because for them, they don't want to sell it, even though they may have a lot of equity in it, and go off and buy another home with a higher interest rate. There's actually some pros and cons to that, so that's kind of good. And when you get to a leveling market, the truth is maybe your family's growing and you have to sell your house, or maybe, you might go through the unfortunate loss of, a significant other in a divorce. It just happens. I'm divorced myself, so I know what it's like to go through that. So no judgment there, but it's just the reality of why sometimes people sell homes. But there's always so many different factors. So people are always going to buy and sell. I mean, I remember like even 4 or 5 years ago, I put a home under contract on Christmas Day. So there's always people out there. If you got to move, you got to move. And the cool thing about our area in DFW, again, is it's such a cool, dynamic place. A lot of people realize that our prices are relatively low compared to the rest of the country, and people are like, okay, I'll give that a shot. I'll move there and enjoy all Fort Worth has to offer. I'm here in Fort Worth, so I'm kind of specifically talking about Fort Worth, but the data that I'm sharing is kind of in the general DFW area. And on that, this is also my opinion and is a reflection of the data that I've compiled and what I study, and I actually spend a lot of time paying attention to this so I can inform my clients to the best of my ability. So so people with low interest rates are kind of hanging on for a little bit, but here's the thing. So I think when interest rates spiked, all these people pulled back because they were like, man, it was just 3%, now it's 8%, and then, or 7%, whatever it was, depending on, there's a lot of factors on what your personal interest rate's gonna be. But those have kind of dropped a little bit, but they're still higher. Historically, they're still not bad, actually. But I know it's kind of like a punch in the gut when you were like, I really wanted 3%. Or 4% or something like that, and who wouldn't want an interest rate like that? But people are kind of starting to wrap their arms around the fact that interest rates aren't going to go down. There's really no forecasters out there that are saying that we're going to hit that like low 3% again anytime soon. Some are even saying it will never happen again. I'm a never say never. You don't really know. But it very much looks like we're not going to drop back down to that. So if you need to buy a house, you may as well go ahead and do it, because while you may pay a little bit higher in interest, you most likely will get a little bit more leveled out deal as far as the price that you're paying compared to 2 years ago. I was working with clients 2 to 3 years ago, and I mean, we were putting healthy offers in over asking and still getting beat out time after time after time again, and it's exhausting. It's not encouraging. I know, because I'm a home buyer myself. So like when you find a house and you fall in love with it and you put this awesome package together that your offer is going to be, and it's still just not good enough, you're in a much better position there. So that's good. So also with the low inventory out there, there's not enough houses to go around. So if you're on the sales side, because of that low inventory, if you do need to move and hit the market or have that life change, you're probably still going to do well there too, because the inventory is lower. So if you're a buyer out there that needs to make that move into Fort Worth, or you need to change to get into a different school district, or again, whatever your personal situation is, if you are selling to make that move, most likely the people that are looking at your neighborhood, because low inventory, they've got less to choose from, which puts you in a better position to leverage a higher sales price. So that's kind of what a balanced market does. It's not necessarily like the buyers knock it out of the park or the sellers knock it out of the park. It's really kind of one of those deals that ultimately both sides of the table are happy at the end of the day. And I used to be really like firm on just whittling down everything to as hardcore as I could. And I kind of have learned over time that really the best deals that come together are the ones where both sides of the table are happy in a lot of ways. And I can create a whole different video on why that is, but it is the truth. So this kind of creates a balanced market. Prices really just don't go down too much with low inventory. Here's some statistics that I wanted to share really quick to kind of give maybe some light at the end of the tunnel. If you are looking to sell, I saw some data that said from basically around this time to 1 month previous, the mortgage rate application, so that means buyers that are applying for a mortgage so they can go out and shop for a house, is up 28%. So again, I think people are wrapping their arms around the fact like, hey, interest rates aren't going to go down. I still need to go buy a house. Okay, I'm going to deal with what's in front of me, which leads me to an interesting question, because often I talk to buyers and they're like, man, this is more expensive than it was last year. Like, I'll talk to buyers that are like, I'm gonna wait for prices to go down. That's not going to happen in Fort Worth. There's too much infrastructure dollars. I mean, you gotta think like the properties across Montgomery, across from Dickies Arena. Once Dickies opened up, I mean, but boom, all those property prices went up. So when we have infrastructure dollars like we have and dynamic growth like we have in Fort Worth, that is every indicator that prices are going to continue going up. And I'll give you an example. So when I started out in real estate in 2003 renovating homes, and that's kind of how I came full circle to where I am now. So I started out as a buyer. I always, even on the buy and sell side, never tried to ever do for sale by owner. Always worked with real estate professionals. I knew you'd get the most out of it that way. But when I started out, and as I kind of learned how to grow, I guess, my personal wealth and money through real estate, I would have a lot of conversations with real estate professionals. And for years and years and years, I heard the term, you know, because when you're like, oh, well, as a buyer, you're like, that seems kind of expensive, you know. I heard this term in real estate, and I guess it's kind of broad, but the best time to buy is 5 years ago. That's always the answer. The best time is 5 years ago. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because, I mean, all the people that are buying now that are saying it's too expensive, that's what they were saying 2 years ago and 3 years ago and 5 years ago. And I promised a $250,000 house today, even in the economy that we're in. If you wait another 3 years, especially 5 years, it's not going to be 250 anymore. So the best thing to do is go ahead and take the plunge. If you're looking for a house, you're going to do well in Fort Worth. And when I go out with buyers, I'm always looking not only to make you happy where you are currently in your present moment, you always want to be in the right community for you, but also that it's a good investment. So if you do have a life change, or say you have a 5-year plan to hang on to the house, but in 2 years you have a baby and you need to move, or whatever the case is, that you still walk away with a nice amount of equity. So on to equity, here's my next thing. Another statistic that I was looking at is that in this area, we are in record highs on equity. So homeowners, whether you bought 2 years ago, or, you know, fortunate for you if you bought here in this area 10 years ago or 12 years ago or even more, I mean, you're probably sitting on a mountain of cash. And if you need to sell, liquidate, walk away with this dump truck full of change, and then invest a minimum down payment into another property, and then you're sitting on this huge mountain of liquid cash in your bank account, and you want to go travel and do fun things, I mean, you have a lot of options if you invested in real estate. Much better than those that just keep throwing their money away, you know, making a landlord rich. So that's a really, really cool thing. And I'm going to close this. I always like to share personal stories with any client that I work with. Like, I bought my house in 2017. I paid a certain amount for it. And right now, here we are, you know, 6 years later, and really and truly, it's about 5.5 from when I bought it. I would do very, very well in my home if I chose to just, hey, you know, I don't need it, or it's too big or too small, or whatever the case is. If I decide to walk away, or say my back's against the wall, I have medical bills, or whatever the case is, I mean, I'm gonna do really, really well in it. And that kind of goes back to that 5 years ago thing, right? There's no way you could buy in the neighborhood where I live for what I paid for it 5.5 years ago. So I'm kind of living proof that that statement is accurate. And it really is, and you know, time will tell. In 5 years from now, you're not going to be able to pay the prices that you can today. So to wrap that all up, I hope that answered some questions for you guys about what's going on in the real estate market. It's fast moving, it's dynamic here, and if you're looking to sell and make a transition, or buy, even if you're looking to get into your first home, I think taking a leap of faith and doing that and making a smart investment for yourself that will pay dividends over time is a very good choice. So anyway, I hope that answered some questions. Sorry that the video was long, but I hope that the content was in here is helpful with what's going on in today's market. So thanks a lot and have a good day. Enjoy the sunny weather in Fort Worth. See ya.